A woman doesn't leave an older man because he's older. She leaves because he reminds her that he's older, in the worst possible ways. A 2023 study from the University of Queensland surveyed over 1,800 women between the ages of 21 and 32 who had dated men at least 8 years their senior, and 56% of them ended the relationship, not because of the age difference, but because of 7 specific behavioral patterns the man kept repeating. And when these women were asked to describe how those behaviors made them feel, the most common word they used wasn't annoyed, it wasn't bored, it was repulsed. Now, here's what's interesting. Most of the men in that same study rated themselves as confident and emotionally aware. They genuinely believed they were doing everything right. That disconnect between what he thinks he's doing and what she's actually feeling is exactly what we're breaking apart today. And I'm going to tell you right now, number 4 on this list is the silent killer. It has ended more age gap relationships than any argument, any jealousy, any lifestyle difference. And almost no one talks about it. So here's something that a lot of people won't say out loud, but I will. Age gap attraction is completely natural. Evolutionary psychology has documented it for decades. Dr. David Buss at the University of Texas has spent over 30 years studying mate selection across 37 cultures, and his research consistently shows that women are psychologically drawn to markers of maturity, stability, and competence, traits that older men often embody. There is real, biological, documented science behind why a younger woman might feel attraction toward an older man. But, and this is the part no one wants to hear, that initial attraction comes with a very short leash, because the same psychology that pulls her toward maturity will violently push her away from immaturity disguised as maturity. And that's exactly what these 7 behaviors are. They're masks. They look like confidence, generosity, and experience on the surface, but underneath, they signal something else entirely. Something that triggers what psychologists call the ick, a visceral, almost involuntary feeling of repulsion that, once activated, is nearly impossible to reverse. Now, I'm telling you this as a woman, not to discourage anyone, not to shame anyone, but because if you're an older man who has the qualities that genuinely attract a younger woman, you deserve to know which behaviors are sabotaging you before you even get a real chance. And some of these are going to sting. But that sting is the price of awareness. So let's get into it. The first thing younger women genuinely cannot stand is when an older man starts performing youth. And I chose that word very carefully. Performing. There's a massive difference between an older man who is naturally energetic, curious, and engaged with modern culture, and an older man who suddenly starts using slang he learned from TikTok 15 minutes ago. Dr. Robert Cialdini, the psychologist behind the best-selling book Influence, talks about a principle called authenticity bias. Human beings are hardwired to detect when someone is being inauthentic. Our brains process social cues faster than conscious thought. And when something doesn't match, when a 45-year-old man says, "That's bussin'," with the same energy as a 19-year-old, it doesn't land as cool. It lands as try hard. And try hard is the opposite of attractive. Here's the thing younger women won't tell you directly. The entire reason she's attracted to an older man is because he's not like the guys her age. She's drawn to the calm, the steadiness, the fact that he doesn't need to perform for anyone. The moment he starts mimicking the behavior of younger men, he destroys the very thing that made him appealing. It's like a 5-star chef abandoning his signature dish to serve microwave burritos because he saw them trending on Instagram. Nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted that. And now everyone's confused and slightly nauseous. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that perceived authenticity was the #1 predictor of sustained attraction in age gap couples, ranking higher than physical appearance, financial status, and even shared interests. So the message here is simple. Your age is not the problem. Pretending you don't have one is. The second behavior is one that so many older men fall into. because society has literally trained them to do it. It's using financial generosity as a replacement for genuine emotional connection. And before anyone misunderstands this, there is nothing wrong with being generous. There is nothing wrong with treating someone. The problem starts when a man leads with money because he secretly believes that without it, he wouldn't be enough. Younger women pick up on this instantly, and I mean instantly. Because when a man starts showering her with expensive gifts, fancy dinners, and lavish experiences in the first few weeks of knowing her, it doesn't feel like generosity. It feels like a transaction. It feels like he's trying to create a debt she didn't agree to. And psychologically, this triggers what's known as reactance theory, a concept developed by Dr. Jack Bream in 1966, which states that when people feel their freedom of choice is being threatened, they instinctively push back. So when she receives that designer bag on the third date, she's not thinking, wow, he's so generous. She's thinking, what does he expect from me now? And that subtle shift from attraction to obligation is where the whole thing starts to crumble. The most attractive older men I've ever seen operate with a completely different philosophy. They're generous with their time, their attention, their presence. They save the grand gestures for moments that are earned, not manufactured. Because real generosity doesn't come with a receipt. Third, and this one is so common it's almost an epidemic, is when an older man won't stop talking about the age difference. He brings it up in jokes. He brings it up in serious conversations. He says things like, "You probably don't even know what a floppy disk is," or "I was already in college when you were born," as if that's charming. It's not charming. It's a neon sign that reads, "I'm insecure about this." Here's the psychology behind why this is so destructive. When a younger woman chooses to be with an older man, she has already processed the age gap. She's already thought about it. She's already made peace with it. In her mind, it's handled. So when he keeps resurrecting it over and over, he's essentially telling her, "I don't trust your decision. I don't believe you actually want to be here." And that is deeply unattractive. Dr. John Gottman, arguably the most respected relationship researcher in the world, found that couples who repeatedly focus on perceived weaknesses in their relationship are 67% more likely to experience dissatisfaction within the first 2 years. When you keep pointing at the gap, you're not being self-aware. You're being self-destructive. She chose you. Trust that. Stop reminding her of the reasons other people think she shouldn't have. Now, this is the one I warned you about at the beginning. This is the behavior that has quietly destroyed more age gap relationships than any other on this list. And the reason it's so dangerous is that the men who do it almost never realize they're doing it. It's being patronizing, talking down to her, explaining things she already knows, treating her opinions as cute instead of valid, saying things like, "You'll understand when you're older," or "That's just because you haven't experienced enough yet." Every single one of those sentences is a relationship-ending event wrapped in a smile. A 2022 study from Stanford's psychology department examined the role of perceived respect in romantic satisfaction and found that when one partner consistently felt intellectually dismissed, attraction decreased by an average of 74%, regardless of how physically or financially appealing the other partner was. 74%. That number should terrify every older man reading this. Here's what's happening psychologically. When a younger woman feels patronized, her brain doesn't categorize the man as a partner anymore. It categorizes him as an authority figure, and authority figures don't get romantic attraction. They get compliance, they get resentment, and eventually, they get left. The most successful older men in age gap relationships treat their younger partners as intellectual equals, who simply have different life experiences, not fewer, not lesser, just different. That distinction is everything. Number 5 is when an older man starts showing visible insecurity around younger men. Maybe she mentions a male coworker. Maybe a younger guy flirts with her in public. And instead of responding with calm confidence, he tenses up. He gets possessive. He starts making passive-aggressive comments about young guys these days, or he suddenly needs to remind her of all the ways he's superior. This behavior is rooted in what psychologists call mate guarding anxiety. And while it's a natural evolutionary impulse, the way it manifests in older men dating younger women is uniquely destructive. Because she's not comparing him to younger men. She already made her choice. But the moment he starts competing with guys who aren't even in the race, he demotes himself from confident, mature man to insecure older guy who thinks he's about to be replaced. Dr. David Buss, the same researcher I mentioned earlier, found that excessive mate guarding behavior is one of the top 3 predictors of relationship dissolution across all age groups. But in age gap relationships specifically, it's amplified because it directly contradicts the emotional stability that attracted her in the first place. She came to him because he felt like a harbor in a storm. The second he starts acting like the storm, she's looking for a new harbor. Number 6 is closely related to being patronizing, but it's different enough to deserve its own spot. It's when an older man turns every single conversation into a lecture, a teaching moment, a life lesson. She tells him about a problem at work, and instead of listening, he launches into a 20-minute monologue about corporate dynamics based on his experience in 1997. She shares a frustration about a friend, and suddenly, he's delivering a TED Talk on human behavior that she didn't ask for and definitely didn't need. There's a concept in psychology called conversational narcissism, coined by sociologist Charles Derber. It describes the tendency to redirect conversations back to oneself, and in older men dating younger women, it often disguises itself as wisdom sharing. He thinks he's being helpful. He thinks he's adding value. But what she hears is, "Your experience doesn't matter as much as mine." Here's the truth that every older man needs to tattoo somewhere visible. She doesn't need a professor. She needs a partner. She wants someone who asks her what she thinks, not someone who tells her what to think. The sexiest thing an older man can do in a conversation with a younger woman is listen, genuinely listen, and then respond with curiosity instead of corrections. That single shift in communication style has saved more age gap relationships than any grand romantic gesture ever could. And the 7th behavior, the one that catches so many older men off guard, is rushing the relationship timeline, moving too fast, talking about commitment, exclusivity, moving in together, or long-term plans way too early. And I understand why this happens. An older man often feels the weight of time. He knows what he wants. He's done with the games. He's ready. But she might not be. And that mismatch in pacing can feel suffocating to a younger woman who is still figuring out her own identity. Psychologically, this triggers what attachment theory researchers call anxious pursuit behavior. When one partner accelerates the relationship faster than the other is comfortable with, the slower partner doesn't speed up to match. They pull away. They create distance. They start feeling trapped. And in age gap dynamics, this is intensified because she may already feel external pressure from friends and family who question the relationship. Adding internal pressure from him, that's a recipe for an exit. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2020 found that relationship satisfaction was highest in couples where both partners felt the pace of commitment was mutually agreed upon, not driven by one person's urgency. The older men who succeed in age gap relationships understand something fundamental. Patience is not passive. Patience is powerful. It communicates, "I'm confident enough in what we have that I don't need to lock it down out of fear." And that confidence, real, quiet, unhurried confidence, is the most magnetic quality any man of any age can possess. So here's what all 7 of these behaviors have in common. Not a single one of them is about age. Read that again. Not one. They're about insecurity performing as something else. They're about fear wearing a costume. Every single behavior on this list, the fake youthfulness, the financial overcompensation, the obsessive age gap references, the patronizing, the jealousy, the lecturing, the rushing, all of it traces back to one root cause. A man who doesn't fully believe that who he is right now, at his actual age, with his actual life, is enough. And the irony is devastating, because the very thing that attracted her, his maturity, his groundedness, his sense of self, gets dismantled by his own hands the moment insecurity takes the wheel. The fix isn't complicated. It's not a technique. It's not a strategy. It's a decision. The decision to trust that if she chose you for real reasons, and then behaving in a way that proves her right. Now, here's something that most people miss entirely. While you're busy worrying about what you might be doing wrong, there are women out there who have already decided you're the one, and they're not saying a word about it. They're sending signals, quiet, almost invisible signals that most men completely overlook. And if you're not trained to see them, you'll miss the very opportunities that could change everything. That's exactly what I break down in this next video. 4 clear signs that she has already chosen you, but she's not telling you. If you just spent the last several minutes learning what pushes her away, you owe it to yourself to learn what pulls her toward you in silence. That video is on screen right now. Click it, because the difference between a man who gets chosen and a man who never knows he was chosen is simply awareness, and you're about to have it.